Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the template that you're going to use before we get started. Um, it's important that each of these areas on here is a shape rather than a line. A shape is something that you can cut out of paper. A line is just a crease or just a single dimension, so you can't really cut it out. And I mentioning this, especially in the nose area, sometimes people have a line for the nose. I want you to extend that line up either into some eyebrows or into its own shape so that the bottom line would become a shape, and that would be a layer that is going to be layered on top. Remember, we're thinking about this as separate layers that are kind of stacked on each other. So each of these layers are going to be cut out of a separate piece of the cardstock. Probably that might be a little bit confusing until you start to see my demonstration of where we're going from here. So I'm going to just kind of start. Once you have your design drawn, and this is already symmetrical, so I already had it folded and I had drawn this side, traced this side from my original drawing because I liked that. Then I folded it in half and I traced this side. The next thing you want to do is take a pencil, a graphite pencil, a regular wood pencil, and you want to kind of scribble on the line. So again, I held this up to a window so I could see the lines from this side through my paper. And then this is graphite from my pencil, all kind of scribbled. I still want to keep the basic line of it, but this side is going to act like my carbon paper to transfer my design onto my cardstock. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. This is a very subtle difference, just in case it matters to you. But the cardstock is a little bit slicker on one side than the other side. So if you are opening up the packet of cardstock, the top side is a little bit slicker. Just want to point that out in case that matters to you. All right, so we want to be economical, frugal. We want to be using our cardstock in a conservative manner, which means we're conserving space. So what I'm going to do, I need to flip this over so my graphite side is down. What I'm doing is I'm lining this up into the corner of my cardstock so that my template is pushed to the corner, because what I'm tracing this time is the entire outside perimeter of my whole design. Okay, the whole design, outside perimeter, that whole shape. So I don't need all of this. I'm not going to put this in the middle and waste all that cardstock. I'm putting this off to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this, and I'll probably end up speeding up this section if I can. I'm just doing the outer edge right now. Pushing kind of hard, wiggling back and forth. Some of you might decide that you want to tape down your paper. And that's fine. I'm just holding it in place so it doesn't shift around too much. It's not that slippery a process. You should be able to do it without the tape, but there is tape in your sculpture kit, which I was going to show you a little trick about your kit. Hang on one second. Okay, the trick I wanted to show you about the tape is you get this roll of Scotch tape in your kit, and whenever the Scotch tape starts, it has a little piece of like a little piece, looks like Scotch, like a Scotch plaid at the end, okay? So that you don't lose the end of this and make yourself crazy, after you slice off a piece of this, I always fold my tape off to the side so I've got a little tab so I can always find the end. Just a little art teacher trick for you. Okay. So if you wanted to tape this down, you could tape this down. Okay. I'm just freewheeling here. So I'm here. I'm going to continue this way. I'm going all along the outer edge. And you can see, look at that. My design is transferring. If you do not put enough graphite on the outside, it's not going to transfer very well, so just be aware of that. I'm skipping the tongue. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Okay, so I pretty much have my design here. I can see where I need to kind of fill in. I only need this line to be dark enough for me to be able to see it to cut it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just going to join my mask together down there. Sorry, this white paper makes the camera freak out a little bit. I'm going to join that down there. Okay, so I will end up cutting this piece out. Okay, I will keep this extra for embellishments. Right. So that was the outer edge. Now I'm going to think about my next layer. So coming in from my next layer, I have to put my hand here to make this not freak out. I am going to include this whole piece here, okay? This whole face piece. So I'm counting this headband and this face layer all together. And I'll explain why as I start to put these things together. So now this is too big a piece to add to the cardstock that I already used. So I'm going to use a second piece. So if you can see this, I'm lining this up with the top edge of the cardstock. Let me scoot this back a little bit so you can see. So this lines up with the top edge of the cardstock there. I'm going to scoot this over a little bit because I'm just going to trace this part and then trace the inside face part. So I'm coming into the headband area, pressing hard again. And then I'm going to come down on the, no, I'm going to come all the way around on the outside, sorry, all the way around on the outside. All the way around on the outside over here, which I did not leave. Okay. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the face. Okay, so what you'll see here is I'm envisioning that second layer kind of coming forward. So I've included some things that are not part of that, but I also have skipped over some areas because these earplug things are going to pop up higher. So I've kind of skipped that for the moment. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. So that's the headband. Here's where I went where the earplugs would be. So I'm just going to connect this line over here. I'm going to connect this line over here. I don't need these little tabs to show, so I'm just going to connect here and connect here. So this piece includes the face area and the headband area, and it's going to overlap that back piece that I traced. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to some more interior spaces, or actually some other layers. So I'm going to pause there for a second. I'll be back. Okay, so I traced this piece and cut this piece out. I traced this piece and cut this piece out. I want to talk about some other pieces that are kind of intersecting. So this is a scrap from one of those other sections that I cut. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trace this kind of crown piece. And this crown piece is special because it tucks underneath the headband, this band area. So again, I'm going to line it up. You can tape it if you want. I'm going to trace over these lines. And what you'll notice too is like as you start to trace over these lines, you're getting a lot of graphite on the front of this, which might transfer to your hands a little bit. And we are working with white paper, so you might want to just be aware that you don't get lots of smudges all over your paper. Okay. So I am tracing, like I said, just this crown piece. And I know it's hard for you guys to see what parts are traced, but I'm just going to hold this in place and hold this up. So you see how I trace the top edge, but the bottom edge, I am going to leave, I am going to trace this line down here because what I need this crown piece to be is um, a little bit shorter than this line. So I'm just putting that line in there so I know where to go. So I've got the top edge, I've got that bottom line there. I'm just flipping this back and forth so I can fill in anything that I missed. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this away. Now, I want these sides to go down to here, but I'm gonna change this line to make it a little bit shorter. So this was the line I traced, which is the bottom of that band that's gonna go across. What I'm doing is just kind of following that line, but a little bit further up. What this is going to do is it makes this crown piece extend beyond where it is in the drawing so that it will tuck underneath this band. So I have some overlap there. Okay, so that when I cut this out, it will be separate. Or it will have some overlap to it. So I'm going to, even while I have this right here, I've got plenty of space to also trace an additional headband because I want to layer that up. So before I cut this, I'm going to, I just want to show you guys how I want you to be frugal and conservative. I'm actually going to turn this way and check to see that I can fit this band in here. I can. Okay. So I'm going to trace this band because this is going to be a separate piece. Remember, we're thinking layers. So these shapes are layers that are stacked up on each other. So there I've got the band as a separate piece. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and I'm going to show you like how to envision the layering. Okay, so here's my design, and now I'm going to show you some of the pieces. If you have big scraps like this, hang on to them because they are going to be useful for your embellishments. And I'm going to show you kind of how this is going to come together. So here's the base. All right. Now this is the piece, the face piece is going to layer on top. The crown piece will go underneath here. So it will be layered underneath so that I've got that extra bit of space here so I have room to glue it underneath there. And then this headband piece will be layered on top of here. So already I have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, and I've just kind of gotten started. Now, some of the other pieces that I pick or that I cut out will also might be at the same level as some of these other pieces as far as like the height goes, but they are separate pieces that are cut out. Another thing I want to point out with this graphite transfer, which is what the process is called when we use the back of the paper, the graphite on the back of the paper to transfer over, you're going to have some edges that have pencil on them. You have two choices. One is to flip your pieces over because they're symmetrical, and then that pencil edge does not show. But if you feel like this graphite is getting on stuff, then take the time to go around and erase that graphite all along the edges of your pieces. But like I said, if you want, you could just, here's the graphites on this side. When I go to put this together, I will turn this side over. So I am only cutting. Today is only cutting. If you have questions about how your pieces are going to go together, I know all white on white on white, it's hard to see, but like I said, these will be raised up, and that having them raised up will create some really nice shadows underneath, which will create contrast and show a difference between all of these levels. Going forward, what I'm going to do, just so you can kind of visualize if this helps you, going forward, I'm going to cut out a piece that is this piece here, this kind of outer band that goes into the earplugs, and I will create a tab, go up higher than this. So when I trace this, I'll trace those outside edges, come in here, do this piece, and then I will draw up into here so I have some overlap room. Then I'm going to treat this all as one piece, the eyebrow area, and then I'm going to skip to this mouthpiece area, and then I won't draw the nose, but I will connect those so that this could all be cut out in one piece. The nose will be separate. The rings for the eyes will be separate. The tongue will be separate. These little earplug pieces will be separate. So all these small pieces can easily be traced onto small pieces of paper. So when I'm doing the earplugs, I want to point this out because every year people do this. When I trace the earplugs, I don't need to have both earplugs on the piece of paper at the same time. I'm going to find a scrap piece. I'm going to do this shape here first. Okay, so I've transferred that. I have plenty of room on this scrap to do the other earplug. So now I just move my template. Move my template, make sure it's got enough room, and then I trace this piece. Okay, so now I've got those two that I can cut out from here. They do not need to be traced as two separate things that are spaced all this difference. That is a waste of space in between. Trace them out separately. I traced one, I traced the other. I will do the same thing with the circles for the eyes. Obviously the nose crosses over, but I'm going to continue to work on these pieces and cut them. Your goal for this class period is to work out these pieces and start transferring them to your board and cutting them out so that you start to get all these layers going. This is all we're doing, trying to get the layers. I may contact you or suggest to individual people that they add more layers or work out another possible layer to help support things, because I think people are going to run into individual situations which don't really require me to address to the whole group. Camera was flashing, sorry about that. So you're going to go ahead and work, and we will pick this up in video next class.